Now, this story right here is really, really interesting. So, look, you could look at Joe Biden's poll numbers, and there's plenty of stuff to be concerned about there. I think that's true. I think the Democrats more generally, there's stuff to be concerned about there. It's true. But, what we really haven't fully digested yet is just the insane extremism of the far right and all this nonsense going on with Trump, with all the indictments and the legal challenges, and like all of that stuff is turning normie America against the Republicans decisively. In fact, the more insane the Republican gets, the more it appears like every independent, every moderate, every normie is like, I just got to go for a Democrat just to keep these guys away from power. So look at this. ABC News. Democrats are overperforming in 2023 special elections. Is it a clue for Biden versus Trump? Some Republicans, however, caution against reading too much into specials. Okay. Looking ahead to 2024, Democrats concede some cause for concern, including President Joe Biden's anemic approval rating in early polls forecasting a repeat race against former President Donald Trump in which Biden either ties or trails, due in part to a notable chunk of undecided voters and apprehension over Biden's age and acuity, which he has repeatedly dismissed. But Democrats also say that based on 2023 so far, they see plenty of reasons for optimism about their chances with voters. An analysis from 538 found that in 38 special elections held so far this year, Democrats have outperformed the partisan lean or the relative liberal or conservative history of the areas where the races were held by an average of 10%, both romping in parts of the country that typically support the party while cutting down on GOP margins in red cities and counties too. 10% is a gigantic number, by the way. Even if it was 5%, that'd be huge. For instance, the Democratic candidate in a Wisconsin State Assembly special election last month lost by just 7 points in an area where Republicans have a 22-point edge and where Trump beat Biden by almost 17 points in 2020. In a New Hampshire special election in May for a state House seat, the Democrat won by 43 points, far beyond the party's estimated 23-point edge in the district. The data from 538 does not include regularly scheduled off-year elections, including the Wisconsin Supreme Court race earlier this year, in which the liberal candidate, now Justice Janet Protasiewicz, won by 11 points in a state famous for its wafer-thin election margins. I think when you look at things like this, one special election doesn't mean much on its own, but when you start to see a real consistency, it can certainly become predictive of the next election cycle, said Ben Knuckles, a Wisconsin Democratic strategist. For comparison, according to 538, Democrats outperformed the weighted partisan lean by about 4% in special elections held between 2018 midterms and 2020 elections, when Biden won the White House by 4.5%, but Democrats underperformed in House races. Conversations with 8 Democratic and Republican operatives in the swing states show some repeated explanations for this success. The public's general support for abortion access after the Supreme Court reversed the national guarantee for the procedure last year, along with angst and anger over Trump's comeback bid, given how divisive he remains. 2 factors which might even overcompensate for Biden's sagging approval ratings. Republicans have not had a good election night since before the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and honestly, it seems like the post-Roe Republicans couldn't find their groove, even if a DJ played their favorite song on repeat. So I think Democrats are in a very good position here going forward. Special and off-year elections are not perfect predictors of major election cycles. Now Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, a Republican, earned a surprise victory in 2021 before Democrats' surprisingly strong performance in the 2022 midterms. However, similar elections held in 2017 and 2019 did precede Democratic successes in 2018 and 2020. Quote, I think what we're seeing is that the Dobbs decision on abortion has fundamentally rewired our politics, and almost every other measure than actual votes cast has yet to figure out how to bake that in. Whether you're talking about traditional approval ratings, whether you're talking about polling, the ground has shifted, said Wisconsin Democratic strategist Joe Zepecki. Almost all of these elections keep ending up different than what you would have expected in the same direction. And so that, to me, suggests there's some stickiness to this. So, look, in other words, there was like a built-in polling advantage for Democrats that led into the 2016 race, and of course Trump ended up winning, and so, polling had an identity crisis, and they were like, Jesus, why were we overestimating Democrat support? And then in every election since then, it's been the opposite. There's been this baked-in pro-Republican bias, and then on the election day, Democrats always outperform. We've seen this in a number of elections now. And what they're saying is the evidence that we have for these special elections in 2023 are that Democrats are actually massively overperforming by 10 percentage points. Now, why is that? Look, that's the speculation. That's debatable, right? It could be because of Roe v. Wade, like they're alluding to in this article, that like that is something Americans haven't gotten over, and they find the Republicans too extreme for that. It could be that, and it also could just be, look, everybody sees everything going on with Trump. You can't hide from it. 1 million criminal indictments, He raises the temperature and doubles down and triples down every other day, going after the judge, going after the prosecutor, going after potential jurors, going after the city it's held in. It's chaos. It's mayhem. And he's sort of dragging the whole party down with him. And it gets to the point where any normal person is going to be like, anything but this. Anything but this. This guy's like a criminal and he's flipping out and he's dragging the country down with him. And that's not okay. And I think that's where we are. Just like the insanity of one of the parties is just by default helping the Democrats, even if they're led by a guy who barely knows where the hell he is, which is exactly where we are. So that's wild, man. That's wild. But 10-point advantage, 10 points over what they're expected to do, that's huge. Now, we still got a lot of time to the election, so anything could happen, but man, this is a great sign for Democrats, and honestly, a terrible one for Republicans. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.